Chapter 6, homework number 2. This is your test review section for Monday. Make sure you check the answer key on Google Classroom. All the answers have been posted here. So let's get down to Tuesday's homework. 677. Write an explicit equation for the sequence graphed on the right. So these are the terms on the x-axis. So you can see that term 2 is 8. So if we have like a list of numbers, we've got the first term, second term, third term, fourth term, and so on. The second term is 8. So we know the second number in the list is 8. The third number in the list is 4. The fourth number in the list is 2. That's all we know. As you can see, it's curved. And the pattern here is it's dividing by 2, right? But since we want to multiply, let's keep this number, change this to the times sign, and then flip. Times a half. 4 times a half is 2. 2 times a half is 1. Going backwards, we know that 16 times a half is 8, so that first term is 16. And we need to get the 0 term. So what number times a half would give me 16? 32. Alright, so our 0th term is 32. We know our multiplier is a half, so we can plug those into the equation. The equation is t of n equals 0 term times, that's 32 times, the multiplier, 1/2 raised to the power n. So that's the answer for 677. This is a geometric sequence, so we need to use this equation. (6-78). Serena wanted to examine the graphs of the equation below on her graphing calculator. Rewrite each of the equations in y equals form when the equation is solved for y so that she can enter them into the calculator. I'll do A, you can do B. So for A, we need to clear the parentheses, and we do that by distributing the negative sign. You can picture an invisible 1 right here. So this is 5 minus. If we distribute that to y, it becomes negative y. And if we distribute the negative sign to 2, we have a double negative. Negative, negative 2. Or in other words, plus 2. Okay? And then we need to combine like terms. I've got 5 and 2 and a minus y. So 5 and 2 together make 7. 7 minus y equals 3x. If I take away 7 from each side, 7 minus 7 is 0. So I get negative y, the negative sign is still there, equals 3x minus 7. Now as a final step, I can flip all the signs. It's a trick we learned a long time ago. So this sign, negative y, is now normal y, and 3x is now negative 3x. Negative 7 is now plus 7. I can just flip all the signs from positive to negative and vice versa. 6-85. Jai was solving the systems of equations below when something strange happened. Solve the system. What happened? Alright, so this is I'm going to solve by substitution. I have one equation that's y equals, and another one that's not. So instead of writing 2y, I'm going to write 2 times negative 2x plus 5. Then I continue with plus 4x equals 10. Distribute the 2, so I have negative 4x plus 10. And then I have plus 4x equals 10. So negative 4x, combine like terms. Negative 4x and plus 4x are going to cancel, and I get 10 equals 10. So what does that mean? Infinite solutions. Alright, so we need to graph both lines on the same set of axes. We've got y equals negative 2x plus 5. So I can graph that by putting a dot on the y-axis, put a point right at the starting value. The initial value is 5, and then the slope is negative 2. That's kind of like negative 2 over 1. So from here, I can go down 2 and over 1. down 2 and over 1, down 2 and over 1. There's my first line. Okay, now for my second line, it's not in y equals form, so what I need to do is I need to solve for y. 2y plus 4x equals 10. So I'm going to take away 4x from each side, so I get 2y equals 10 minus 4x. Then to solve for y, divide both sides by 2. So y is going to be equal to 2 goes into 10 5 times, minus 2 goes into 4 2 times. Alright, so now I have a second equation, y equals 5 minus 2x. I need to graph it on the same set of axes. So I'll let you do that. I graphed the first line, now I'll graph this one, then answer C. 686. On Tuesday, the cafeteria sold pizza slices and burritos. The number of pizza slices sold was 20 less than twice the number of burritos sold. Pizza sold for $2.50 a slice, and burritos sold for $3 each. The cafeteria collected a total of $358 for selling these two items. I'm going to highlight this sentence. This is going to give us our first equation. So let's start by making let statements. We have pizza and burritos, so I'm going to say let P equals number of pizza slices, and let B equals number of burritos. The number of pizza slices sold was, that means equals. So the number of pizza slices sold, P, was, that means equals, 20 less than twice the number of burritos sold. So let's unpack this. Twice the number of burritos sold. The number of burritos sold is B, so twice that is 2B. Okay, but we need 20 less than that. 20 less than 2B. So let's take away 20. That's our first equation. P equals 2B minus 20. All right, the next step. Pizza sold for $2.50 a slice, and burritos sold for $3 each. The cafeteria collected a total of $358. So now what we need to do is make a cost equation. Pizza is $2.50 each. So I'm going to multiply 2.5 times P. Burritos sold for $3 each. So I'm going to put a plus sign. Then 3 times B. So this is going to add up all the money I got from selling pizza and burritos. And if I add it up, it should add to $358. Okay, so I'm going to go one step further. I'll help you set up the equation, and then you can solve it. Now I want to use substitution. And I know I want to use substitution because this top equation is solved for P. P equals. And the bottom equation is not. So I am going to substitute 2B minus 20. That's equal to P. So I can find P in the next equation, and I can substitute that down there. So it's going to be 2.5 times whatever P is equal to, which is 2B minus 20. And then I'm going to add on to that plus 3B equals 358. Distribute the 2.5. 2.5 times 2B, that's going to be 5B minus 2.5 times 20. 50 plus 3B equals 358. And then if you combine like terms, it's going to be 8B minus 50 equals 358. All right. Now remember, you're determining how many pizza slices sold. So solve for B, then find P. 95. Solve using any method. All right, for part A, I'm going to use elimination because 3y and 3y are the same in both equations. It's the same coefficient of y. So that means if I multiply the top equation by -1, that'll flip all the signs. -1 times 2x is -2x. -1 times 3y, that's -3y. Then we've got an equal sign. -1 times 9 is -9. If I keep that bottom equation the same, then it's perfect for elimination because the coefficient of y is the same number but with opposite signs. So that's the trick. Multiply one equation by -1. Now let's add them up and see what we get. Those are going to cancel. This becomes -5x equals -15. Then divide both sides by -5. X equals 3. All right. Now I need to plug this back in to solve for y. So I've got 2x plus 3y equals 9. If x is 3, that's 2 times 3, which is 6. Take away 6 from both sides, and then divide both sides by 3. So y is equal to 1. Answer 3, 1. Okay, the next one I'm going to solve is b. b I'm going to use substitution for, and the reason is the top equation is solved for x equals, and the bottom equation is not. So I'm going to find x in the bottom equation, and I'm going to substitute 8 minus 2y. So y minus, instead of writing x here, I'm going to write 8 minus 2y. All right, and then I distribute the negative sign. Y minus 8, and if I distribute the negative sign, minus minus is plus. Combine like terms, y and 2y, that's 3y minus 8. So 3y equals 12, adding 8 to each side, y equals 4. All right, x is equal to 8 minus 2y. So x is equal to 8 minus 2 times 4. It's going to be 8 minus 8, which is 0. So x is 0, and the solution is 0, 4. 108, determine if it's a function, then do the domain and range. So it's the vertical line test here. B is going to pass the vertical line test, so it's a function. If you draw a vertical line and it only hits once, we've got a function. Look at A. If I draw a vertical line right here, it hits the graph in 2 locations. It's like a flower-shaped graph, so that means it's not a function. It doesn't pass the vertical line test. All right, and let's do the domain and range for B. Remember, domain is left to right. So let's look at this graph. How far left does it go? And how far right does it go? On the left, it goes as far left in the x-axis as -2, 2, 3. So in between -2 and 3, that's the domain. With math notation, inequality notation, it's going to look like that. Now the range is bottom to top. So how low does it go? How high does it go? On the y-axis, on the y-axis, it goes as low as -2. 2, it goes as high as +2. So for my range, it's going to be -2 to 2. With math notation, inequalities, that's y is less than or equal to 2, but greater than or equal to -2. So either or is fine for now. Okay, the 2 triangles below are congruent. Describe a series of rigid transformations that maps one onto the other. write a congruent statement relating the triangles. Okay? So, if I reflect the triangle on the left, then it'll look like that. But it's still not lined up with x, z, y. So to line up with x, z, y, I need to rotate it. So I need to reflect it and then rotate it into place. So triangle UVW should be reflected, then rotated. To map to triangle XYZ. So if I reflect it, then I rotate it into place, then we'll get a perfect map. If you have trace paper, you can test it out. It works well with this. Okay, now we need to write a congruent statement relating the triangles. So if I reflect it, then rotate it into place, draw that again. This is U, this is V, and this is W. So W is going to rotate to Y, V is going to rotate to Z, and U is going to rotate to where X is. So I'm going to erase this and redraw. Actually, I'll just draw it in red. After a rotation, the two triangles will be on top of each other, and it will be U right here, then V's right here, then W is here. Order is very important. So let me write my congruence statement. UVW, triangle UVW, this means is congruent to. Then, since I said UVW, I have to say XZY. It has to go in the same order. Triangle UVW is congruent to XZY. And again, the triangle vertices need to be in the same ordering. So U goes to X, V goes to Z, W goes to Y. Are the two triangles below congruent? Make a sketch, then determine all of the angle measures and all of the side lengths. All right. So what we need to use for this one is the Pythagorean theorem. So remember, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So this can be a, b, and c. C is always the hypotenuse. You can find C by finding the right angle and then drawing a little line to shoot out from the right angle. And the first line it hits, that's the hypotenuse. So C is called the hypotenuse. All right, so A in this case is 117. 117 squared, oops. Plus B squared, that's going to be 44 squared, is equal to C squared. Now I'm going to use a calculator because these numbers are rather large. 117 squared is 13,689 plus 44 squared is 1936, and that's still equal to C squared. And if I add those together, I get 15,625 is equal to C squared. So I have C squared, but I need to find C. So that means that if I take the square root of both sides, square and square root cancel, and C equals square root of that. Again, use your calculator. C equals 125. So what did that tell me? That tells me that this side of the triangle is 125. So it should look familiar because look, 125, 117, 44. 125 blank 44. So you could use the Pythagorean theorem to solve this, but because the sides already correspond, then you don't need to. You can just fill in the blank. 117 should be there, and 125 should be there. All right, now do remember that this means 90 degrees, and also remember, angles in a triangle add to 180. So let's do this in blue. We have 90 degrees plus 69.39 plus this angle, which I'm going to call x, equals 180. So we need to find the number that goes here. so that these three numbers add to 180. So that's 159.39 plus x equals 180. And then if you subtract 159.39 from both sides, you just solve it like an equation. So x equals 20.61, which should look familiar, right? Because it's in the other triangle. So 20.61, we fill that in here. 90 goes to 90, and 69.39, that's the one that's missing over here. Okay, so you can see these triangles are congruent because all three sides are the same and all three angles are the same. If two triangles share the same sides and the same angle measures, they're going to be congruent. Okay, so how do we map the top triangle to the other one? Well, looks like you can just rotate it. If you rotate it, they're not drawn to scale, but if you rotate it this way, they'll line up. So rotate the triangle on the left. Maybe I should be more specific this time. I'll say clockwise to map to the other triangle. Alright, 7-8. J enlarged figure A so that it was similar to figure B. What is the scale factor? Well, you can see that these two sides go together. Those two sides go together. So let's see, 2 times what is 5? 4 times what is 10? It's going to be the same number. The trick to getting that number is you take the bigger side, 5, and you divide it by the smaller side, which, for example, 2 in this case. So these two sides go together. So let's divide 5 divided by 2, and that's 2.5. Now double checking our work, 2 times 2.5 is 5. 4 times 2.5 is 10. So that's our scale factor. Now to get x, all we need to do is multiply by the scale factor. So 7 times that constant scale factor will give us x. 7 times 2.5 is equal to x. So that's 17.5 is equal to x. And this is in millimeters, so let's be careful and write mm. Alright, write the equation of the line with the x-intercept and y-intercept. Y-intercept is the starting value. So if you're thinking y equals mx plus b, they already gave us b. b is 9. So we have y equals mx plus 9. Now we don't know what the slope is. We could find the slope using these 2 points, but I have another idea. Let's take 4, 0, negative 4, 0. Let's get the x-coordinate and the y-coordinate, and let's plug it in for x and y. We'll leave m in place. So this can be 0 equals m, whatever that is, times negative 4 plus 9. So rewriting that, that's 0 equals negative 4m plus 9. Take away 9 from each side to solve for m. 0 minus 9 is negative 9 equals negative 4m. Divide both sides by negative 4, and m is equal to 9 over 4. Negative divided by negative is positive. So that tells us that rough work there is m equals 9 over 4. Again, you could find the slope the traditional way by doing y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. That's also going to work. So our equation is y equals 9 over 4x plus 9. Okay, here's our sequence. Can this be arithmetic? Let's see, 40 minus 20 is 20. And if I subtract 20 again, I have 0. But the sequence goes to 10 next, so this can't be arithmetic. Can't be arithmetic. There's no constant difference. Let's try geometric. 40 divided by 2 is 20. 20 divided by 2 is 10. 10 divided by 2 is 5. Can it be geometric? It can be. Now remember, we have to change this to multiplication. Dividing by 2, it's the same as multiplying by a half. 20 times a half is 10. 10 times a half is 5. So it can be geometric. The multiplier is 1/2. So let's graph this sequence. We have n always on the x-axis. And then we have f of n on the y-axis. I'll do every other tick mark is going to be a number. Let's just space it out a little bit. Okay, so I need to get to 40. So maybe I'll go by 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60, 70, 80. I'll stop at 80. Alright, if you think about what the zero term is, zero term would be 80. So if you want, you could find 0 and put a dot at 80, but otherwise I'll start at 1. The first term in the list, the first number, is 40. So the way we graph that is 1, 40. Don't connect the dots. The second number in the list is 20, so the way we graph that is 2, 20. The third number in the list is 10, so we graph that as 3, 10. 4, 5, 5, half of that, and then it keeps getting smaller and smaller. So it says graph it up to 6. Will it ever be 0 or negative? I'll let you answer this. If you keep taking half of a number, does it ever get to 0? Alright, last one. I will do A, you can do B. Actually, I'll do B. So B, the top equation is solved for y, so I'm going to use substitution. Y is equal to x minus 4. So I'll go to this bottom equation, and I'll replace y with x minus 4. Negative 12 equals 3 times x minus 4. From that, I'll subtract 3x. So that's the setup. Take x minus 4. Because it's equal to y, replace y with that expression. We have negative 12 equals 3x minus 12 minus 3x. 3x minus 3x cancels when I'm combining like terms, so I get negative 12 equals negative 12. This is true. So my answer is infinite solutions. The variable has vanished. What's left over is true. That means infinite solution.